Okay. All right. So we are rolling. Hi, Aquarius. This is Tarot Lumination with your love and relationship report for October 2017, as indicated above. Here, 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 and here. Okay, this is for significant relationships, something that's typically in play already, has momentum, typically a chosen relationship. There's going to be a separate playlist for the singles, and it's on the understanding that we're dealing with the energy of yourself, a person of interest, and the relationship itself, where we're um, we're stating that the relationship has a structure and an identity and an energy of its own. That is not yours and it's not the others. It's the relationship itself. It is a third entity. Okay. So no jumpers, no flyers, no oracles, no reversals, none of that. We're just going to tell a story and see where that leads. And hopefully you'll get something out of it. Watch for your sun, moon, and rising. Of course, you know the drill. Done this before. And that's it. Now, Aquarius, you might be under a lot of pressure because of the recent North Node and the Leo eclipse's energy, but the wave is already rolling now, so there's no going back. We have to make the best of it. Okay, Aquarius? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to cut in just a moment and then see what the story tells. All right? If I've forgotten something, maybe it'll come back to me in a moment. Let's just see. I really want to split this up big time. All right. So here we go. This is your energy, okay? You could just say it's you. All right, that's you, Aquarius. Okay, this would be the significant other. Okay, and we're going deep inside of you here, Aquarius, and deep inside the other, and this is the relationship itself. Okay, can you see that I'm trying to show you this crucible here. That's the crucible. Okay, and this is the momentum of the relationship itself. I just want to state that a lot of people like to relate this way. Okay, in astrology that would be through synastry. Okay, but in this reading here with Tarot Illumination, we relate through the relationship itself. In a really strong, healthy relationship, both parties who are deeply invested in themselves and each other relate everything through the relationship so that it becomes a fountain, okay? A creative fountain that is literally, it's like nurtured and nourished like you would a garden, okay? The garden of the soul. Now, we're going to look at the bottom card here in a moment. That's going to be the weather that permeates everything. And hopefully we'll make the best of it so that you, Aquarius, are not owned by the weather. Just make the best of it, okay? Poor weather doesn't mean you have to have a poor time. Really awesome weather doesn't mean you have to act as though everything's wonderful all the time, okay? Let's have a look. Okay, with the Seven of Pentacles here, it's an indication that you're in a really, really good spot to evaluate what's going on. Understand that things are in motion. Momentum is picking up, and you might have, let's say, come into October with an awareness that there's a lot of cleanup to do. And, you know, if there's been a lot of turbulence and shaking up and back and forth, some awesome moments and then some very challenging moments, it can leave a wake in its trail, you know, like a big storm coming through. It just mushes everything around and blows everything over. And then you have to do a massive cleanup campaign. And I'm feeling that for you, that this is a really good chance, a really good opportunity to do that, to take a really good, honest, down-to-earth evaluation of your situation overall, figure out what needs to be cleaned up, how to do it, where are all the weeds coming from, where's all the lint and the debris and all the behavior of treating each other like a piece of furniture, things like that, just taking everything for granted, all these things that can obstruct or hinder a relationship from really flourishing. If you go back to the imagery, if there's a lot of value in the relationship and it has the chance to be fruitful, that's wonderful. But if it's also let's say, struggling to flourish because it might have been overgrown, might have been over-fertilized, under-fertilized, undernourished, or neglected. And in either way, it's very important to take a close look and evaluate what needs to be done now. What are we going to do now? Okay, that's what I'm feeling here for you. It's a perfect opportunity. It's a great time for that. So what's going on with you? Whew. Okay, well, obviously you've been working at it and you've been putting in your heart and soul and doing whatever you can, whatever you could in order to, let's say, maintain yourself, but also the relationship itself. I feel this belongs to you and the relationship. And it might be that, if this is a chosen relationship and no matter how many stressors have been endured for how long, it's very clear here that it's been piling up and piling up, but it's also clear that you've been dealing with it. It's just that you might be a little bit fed up, and you might also be on the realization that, wow, I'm actually responsible for some of this. I don't want to admit it, but that can happen when people start taking relationships for granted, and they start to, when people start to get settled and comfortable, they just treat each other like furniture. Like, oh well, that's you. I love you very much. I love you. See you later. Bye. Love you. Yeah. Text. Smartphone. Blah blah blah. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. And then it just becomes like living through going through the motions, or living according to appearances, and then not dealing with the stuff that needs to be dealt with as you go along. In other words, it's like an otherwise happy couple who got into some bad habits, like maybe just leaving the dishes overnight all the time, and it just gets worse and worse, and not putting out the trash and not cleaning up, whatever it is. In the context of the relationship, like if there's things that are simmering that needed to be dealt with, but they're not being dealt with, because it's just more easy and more comfortable because, oh, I'm so busy, I got work to do, I can't be doing all the chores all the time. And then they're saying, well, I've got my stuff to do too. And so you just kind of come to this comfortable unspoken agreement where you just say, well, this is just how it is. And but bad habits start to pile up and pile up, and they become a problem. They turn into weeds. They turn into vines that suffocate and strangle the relationship in what otherwise would have been or could or may well be a very valuable relationship. And so, by seeing that perspective and realizing, wow, I might have brought all this upon myself, in which case you've basically boxed yourself in a corner. And then the thing is now to admit it and then figure out what to do about that. And that can be a bit of a dent to the pride and the ego, because then all of a sudden you could get stuck in a situation, well, I was doing everything that I had to do. I always do my part. I always do everything. I do this, I do that, I do that. Blah, 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 blah. It's honey, do this, honey, do that. And you got to take care of stuff. You got to do your stuff. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I'm already doing more than my fair share. And you get to that kind of energy, all right? But that happens when people don't bother to do the maintenance of the relationship. Relationships need nurture. This needs nurture. This needs tending. This needs relationship. It's not just all about what can I get out of you? Or what can I get out of you? Or what are you trying to get out of me? What are you trying to get out of me? Or all I want is the benefits of the relationship. I don't want all your sucky stuff. Well, I was going to say the same to you. I just want the good stuff. And why are you behaving like this? Blah, blah, blah. So I hope you get my point. Anyway, let's have a look at the other. Okay, with the King of Pentacles here, as far as they're concerned, it looks like they're doing just fine. You might be, Aquarius, you might be relating with a significant other, a chosen other, who is in some ways very comfortable with themselves, how things are and the way they are, and see absolutely no reason to lower themselves to what might be an undignified way of operating in a relationship, at least from their perspective. From their perspective, they might think they're all that. They might think, well, I've got this, I've got this, I got this, I got this. I bring this and this and this to the relationship. I've made it very clear. I love you very much. And if you don't understand it, that's your problem. You got to figure this stuff out because obviously you're struggling. I'm doing fine. So I don't feel like I'm the one who has the problem here. So what's going on? There's a big imbalance here. There's a really, really big imbalance in the energy and the dynamics of the relationship. Okay? And it doesn't mean that it's anyone's fault in particular because we're dealing with uh, an understanding that the relationship has a structure and identity itself, and to some degree, both parties are vested in the relationship. The other, may feel that everything's fine with the relationship and they're holding up their part. They're doing everything they can. They are being their ultimate sovereign self, maintaining their dignity. And from their perspective, if there is anything wrong with the relationship, and if you're feeling so burdened and that you're boxed in, you're not sure what to do or where to go and struggling to hang on, and yeah, it may be very courageous and that's brave and bold in the context of a relationship. But as far as they're concerned, they might see it as you're the problem. You're the one who's let all the weeds grow because from their perspective, maybe you're the one who's supposed to doing all the maintenance and the housekeeping in the relationship. Some people are like that, but it's all unspoken. It's just assumptions and taken for granted. What happens when people treat each other as furniture. So there's nothing good or bad about any of this. It's just that there's an imbalance. It feels like there's a complete um, disconnect in terms of what's actually going on and what needs to be acknowledged. Regardless of how you feel right now, no matter regardless of how they feel right now, it needs to be acknowledged that this is an opportune moment where the relationship itself needs to be appraised and evaluated for, let's say, it's almost like, um, honey, we need a meeting. We need to figure out what's wrong with the relationship. We're in a great opportunity right now. I'm feeling on top of things. You're obviously having a problem, which is causing a whole problem to the whole relationship. And whatever yummy good stuff we had here, we are now over here. Like they may be sleeping on the sofa and you may be over here just trying to keep it all together. And this is feeling very fragile and flimsy at the moment. So it's like, well, what are we going to do about this? Let's go deeper inside of you. Okay, well, with the Three of Wands here, what I'm feeling, Aquarius, is that you might be looking beyond the relationship itself because you might be very frustrated with the current dynamics of the relationship. And you, despite whatever way they may be conducting themselves, they may be very noble. They may be a wonderful person in their own integrity, in their own right. They may be rich or valuable or have awesome talents and gifts and assets that anybody could possibly want. But in the context of the relationship, there's something seriously out of whack to the point where you're looking beyond the existing horizons. Also, it's an indication that deep down, you might, in a very humble way, be having to admit to yourself that, well, gosh, I really did bring this all upon myself, and I'm now seeing the consequences of my behaviors and actions that might have been going on for years. In other words, oh my gosh, what if this, this is going to sound strange. What if this tarot illumination reading actually makes sense? Oh no. And that means that, wow, maybe I have been just going through the motions and just taking things for granted and making a lot of assumptions. And it would be no wonder that things have come out the way they're coming out in the way that it looks like they're heading, which from your perspective may not be that great. You might have a lot of goals and ambitions, and you might want a lot to happen for the relationship, and you might be deeply vested in the relationship. However, things are definitely out of whack because there's the reflection back from the universe to you is the Seven of Pentacles, which means we need to figure out what's going on here. We need to pay attention and start looking at things. As far as they're concerned, they'd probably be fine, ready, willing and able to go for it. But you're obviously not in the right frame of mind right now. But you might be because this is coming into full awareness now. Let's have a look at them. Okay. So I don't want to say this is like they're moving on. You know, that would be the obvious interpretation right now. Well, they're out of here. Like I've got so much, I don't need this BS. I'm just moving on. I want peace. Well, you could say that if you want. My feeling for you, Aquarius, in this reading is that deep down, they actually want peace. They want tranquility. They want stability in the relationship. They want things to work. They want to have, like, you know, to get back to the good stuff and leave all the turbulence behind. But from their perspective, whatever turbulence is going on in the relationship, whatever struggles are going on that you might be enduring, that you might be projecting onto the other or projecting into the relationship, that are really your issues that need to be sorted out inside oneself, they might see that as that's the perspective. You might not see it, you might not feel it, you might just be coming into awareness of that. And so from their perspective over here, whatever kind of emotional turbulence and anxieties and dramas are going on that are probably not of interest to them, they're like, I wish we could just figure this out and, get back to normal, get back to what works. Because let's say you started off at the beginning, you had a really loving relationship, but things have gone really, really far out of balance because so much was done on autopilot, so much was taken for granted, where you just start treating each other as furniture. And now look what happens. You get to a point where it's so overgrown with weeds. It's become so dysfunctional because of everything just running on autopilot, where you're just going off and being you, dealing with all your struggles without doing the maintenance and the that needs to be done on a regular basis in the relationship. And of course, they might be doing the same. They might have been neglecting the relationship as well. In other words, they both of you may have been conducting yourselves like this all the time, as opposed to through the relationship, which would be the loving and healthy way to deal with things. In other words, oh, I'm Aquarius and I'm up to my neck and I don't know if I can handle this anymore. I feel like I've reached my limits here. I feel like our relationship has reached the limits here. Can we have a talk, please, so we can figure out how to fix this and what to do? That would be the healthy approach. And the same thing, they would be like, well, I'm deeply invested and I'm highly valuable to you, I'm highly valuable to myself, and I want peace and tranquility myself. However, that's your problem. You're supposed to be the one who fixes it. That's not healthy. They might be fully vested. They might think, sorry, they might feel as though they're in a relationship, but they're conducting this way, whereas they might not be aware that in the healthy relationship they would come this way. In other words, if they really value the relationship very highly and you very highly, then they would make an effort and come to you and say, you know what? It's very obvious to me that things are really maxed out and stressed out to breaking point. So what are we going to do about this? We need to talk. Let's have like a gathering. Let's come together. We'll we'll go out to dinner. We'll have a date or something, and we're going to talk about this stuff. We're not just going to ignore it or pretend it's not happening. Let's figure this out because, on a loving relationship, it will be, I love you very much, but I'm really stressed out. I love you very much. I treasure you. I treasure the relationship, but I don't feel so bad. So it's obviously you've got some issues. We need to sort them out for the sake of us, for the sake of the relationship. But it doesn't, I don't know if that's what's actually happening. Okay. So let's look at you see over here with the Six of Swords, they might not be that interested in investing huge amounts of time and energy into, doing all the homework that needs to be done. They might just feel like, well, it's just supposed to work because we already love each other and we've proved it and we're together now and all that kind of stuff. So anything that's wrong is because it's wrong. And if it's wrong, uh, it, it would be just nice to have peace, but it doesn't look like there's any input here about putting in the effort or doing whatever has to be done to get back to peace and harmony. They just want the peace and harmony, if that makes any sense. In other words, from the logical perspective with all these swords here, it's like, well, things should be working. I would love to get back into a peaceful, dynamic, loving, balanced relationship again and leave all this stuff behind. But there's not necessarily any kind of indication of taking actions or actually active, loving steps to make that happen. Let's have a look at the relationship itself. Okay, so with the Five of Wands here, it could be an indication that because of, let's say, long-term neglect in the relationship, where, in other words, it's just like, dust piles up. The dust piles up. The maintenance needs to be done. The trash is not put out properly. The house isn't cleaned properly. The relationship isn't maintained properly. The weeds pile up and grow and grow and grow, and they obstruct the value more and more and more to the point where it's very obvious that there's a serious problem and it needs to be addressed and taken care of. And that is apparent right now. But the relationship itself here with this Five of Wands dynamic is an indication that the awareness is there, but there's not a lot of activity spent in like, how are we going to do this? It's more or less the energy of conflict, where it's not destructive. It's not like you're trying to destroy the relationship or beat up on your loved one over here, and it's not they're trying to beat up on you. It's just that it creates strife, internal conflict, which in some ways could actually be good. It could be, when you get into that energy where sometimes it's really, really a good idea to get it out, to have a really good argument, to have a really good like family discussion. You see all the wands here, Aquarius? There's a lot of pent-up passion and energy which needs to be released. And if you bottle it up and pretend that things can only work if you figure it out, that's boxing yourself in a corner. You don't have to be the one who is responsible for the maintenance of the relationship, and they can just enjoy it. It's a commitment. Both parties have to be vested and invested in the relationship. It isn't just, oh, I love you, and they go, oh, that's great, thank you so much. No, it's we love each other. We need to maintain and invest in ourselves and each other and the relationship. And by vesting in ourselves and each other in the relationship, we create something, the relationship itself, that is very valuable, which is something that both parties, you can both live inside the context of the relationship, knowing that you can endure massive stresses without the relationship blowing up. And the way that happens is that you invest in the relationship, you keep it tidy, you do the daily maintenance, you do the monthly maintenance. It's just like maintaining your car, maintaining your computer. I mean, I don't want to sound crass, but relationships need maintenance. Regular oil changes, regular tune-ups, like maybe date night every month, or like Chinese dinner night or something, or girls' night out, or guys' night out or something, and so that the relationship is balanced and healthy, and you just don't put it on autopilot. But with the Five of Wands here, it's like, oh man, we're just like, it's almost we're fighting back and forth, fighting about issues that instead of doing the homework, it's fighting, whereas it should be in a healthy situation. It would be more like, come on, okay, let's calm down here. Let's figure out what to do and how to do it. And then you might be saying, well, that's what we're trying to do. And they say, well, some of it's your problem. And then you're like, well, some of it's your problem. And so it's almost like you're right now in October, you're in the thick of it. You're really, really in the thick of it, just trying to figure it out. It doesn't mean the relationship's blown up. It doesn't mean like you're going to run away or they're going to run away. It's just that, sometimes when things reach a breaking point, a pressure point, you start looking outside the relationship for solutions. And that leads you into some deep water, things like triangulation, where you start, you know what that means, cheating, stuff like that. So it's really good to do the maintenance so that kind of bad side effect doesn't happen. Let's have a look. What's the momentum here? Oh, so with the Nine of Swords here, my feeling is that the dynamics here and the relationship itself are putting a lot of pressure on you, Aquarius, where you're struggling, battling to figure out, to hold on, like what's coming next. Do I deserve all this? Is this all a consequence of myself, or are they a participant in this? Should I go blaming or whatever? In a way, it doesn't matter, because this feels like it's a big snapshot in time. It's like a big, like an old-fashioned camera, like where they go pop, and this huge old bulb goes blammo. And it's not like a modern smart camera, but it's like the old-fashioned where the light is really big and then it fades. And in so doing, you come to this stark awakening through, like, say, the energy of, it's not, nasty conflict, but it's an energy of serious confrontation where there are, let's say, internal struggles, internal battles in the relationship. It exposes a lot of the stressors that might be at the foundation of the problem here. In other words, this, you see all these nine swords here, this could be the identity of the weeds and the stuff that needs to be maintained and nurtured and cleaned up, because this is the evaluation, this is the assessment, this is the looking at and the exploring, but this is the revelation of what are the problems. So in this like churning situation here, where you're struggling and they're holding on to themselves, they would love peace, you would like to, find a better outcome, a better solution, but it's happening in a very like dysfunctional way. So dysfunctional that the relationship itself would feel like it's one of those dysfunctional relationships. Maybe it's full of drama and back and forth and bickering and whatever, instead of methodical, conscientious, deliberate, loving maintenance. I know it sounds dull and boring, but maintenance is a very, very loving act when both parties deliberately engage in maintenance. And these are all the issues that need to be maintained. In other words, these would be the identity of each of the weeds and the problems and the strife and the suffering that needs to be cleaned up. So it's very, very important, Aquarius, to put a name to this. Like, put a list, make a list of everything that's confusing you, making you angry and upset and PO'd about your relationship, and then figure out what to do about it. Okay, now we've got all this stuff. How are we going to clean this up? Okay, so I hope this makes sense to you. I hope you get something out of it, Aquarius. I'm just going to put that there on the sides for reference. Okay, so there you are. There's your crucible. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings or touch any real nerves, but it's perfectly okay. There's a perfectly good chance for this to happen, so don't worry. It's just about doing the maintenance. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Aquarius. Have a super October. Make the best of this, okay? Watch your sun, moon, and rising. Squish it all together, and maybe this will make more sense, all right? Bye now.